Rishabhanustude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vajakalpatarubhishta Vasiddhuvayevacha Vadidanam Panitiyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shashwin, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances. Hare Krishna. Sachinananda Karuna Das Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody on this group who have joined and who are about to join, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and we are on chapter 17. Chapter 17 is called the Division of Faith, and today we are on text 16, Prabhuji.
17.16, yeah?
Yeah, 17:16.
Okay. I've just finished my work, so I just stepped out of the room for a few minutes.
Okay, Prabhuji, would you like us to read the text and translation till we give you time to?
Yes, we can do that now. I'm ready.
Okay. So, Shashwin, would you like to read the text?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Manah prasada saumyatvam maunam atmavinigraha bhavasam sudirityetat tapo manasamuchyate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lata Mataji, kindly read the word to word.
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mana prasadaha,
Mana prashadaha,
satisfaction of the mind.
satisfaction of the mind.
Saumyatvam,
Saumyatvam,
being without duplicity towards others.
being without duplicity towards others.
Maunam,
Maunam,
gravity.
gravity.
Atma,
Atma,
of the self.
of the self.
Vinigraha,
Vinigraha,
control.
control.
Bhava,
Bhava,
of one's nature.
of one's nature.
Samshuddhiha,
Samshuddhiha,
purification.
purification.
Iti,
Iti,
thus. Yetat,
that,
this.
this.
Tapaha,
Tapaha,
austerity.
austerity.
Manasam,
Manasam,
of the mind.
of the mind.
Uchyate,
Uchyate,
is said to be.
is said to be.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, can we hand over to you now? Hare Krishna.
Yes, sure. I can read the translation and the purport then. Have you covered that already earlier?
No, Prabhuji, can we do that?
Okay, sure.
We haven't done it. We've just started with the Mangalacharan. Okay, Avinash
Just,
Prabhuji, can you please read the translation and purport for us, please, Prabhuji?
Okay, translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay.
Jai.
In satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport. To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, and the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways of sense gratification. And so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerities in mental activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Avinash Prabhuji. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Sure, thank you very much for inviting me. Mukam karoti vachalam pangulam vaitegram. Yaskripatam hamvande Shri Gurudev Dharanam. Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Om Tat Sat. So this is now chapter 17, verse 16. So here, Krishna is continuing from the previous two verses on the subject of austerity. So you must have heard now about austerity of the body and austerity of speech. And now we'll discuss austerity of the mind. So this is, you can say, is going in order of difficulty. Yes. Sometimes we can pose to have austerity of the body, but then the mind, the speech is not austere. You can speak harshly. Sometimes for certain circumstances, we can tolerate, we can speak nicely, but the mind is not austere. Because nobody can check the austerity of the mind. The physical austerity is visible, the speech is visible, but the mind we cannot see. So this is the innermost austerity in this hierarchy. Yes. First, actually, just wanted to start with what is it that we understand about the word austerity? Do we have good understanding what this word austerity means, and what it is the benefit of austerity? In the modern world, when we say the word austerity, it means something which is very unpleasurable, which is something which is, it should try to be avoided at all costs. Austerity, isn't it? In England, here where I am, the government have been using this term recently, austerity measures. We're taking austerity measures. You know, when they're reducing the supplies and increasing the taxes, like, you know, reducing the government facilities, then it's considered that the government is giving us austerities, like that. So generally people think austerity as being quite a negative thing. What austerity means is that we are doing something which causes us some inconvenience now. Why we're doing it is because we want some benefit in the longer term. Yes, it is slightly different to penance. Prabhupada sometimes use the word austerity, sometimes use the word penance. In the next verse you'll read, Prabhupada is going to talk about both together, which we won't go into today. What is penance then? What is the difference between penance and austerity? Penance means that because of something I've done in the past, say I've done some bad activity in the past, I want to repent. I want to repent for that bad activity. I want to make good of my bad activity. This is called penance. I want to do some penance because I've done bad. Austerity is different. Austerity means I want to do something difficult voluntarily. So in one sense, austerity can be considered to be higher. One's own choice, we're taking on some difficulty. And the greatest austerity is actually when austerity is done for Krishna. It's not done for some material gain. It's done for spiritual gain. So why should one take up austerity? Well, we can understand in this world, those who have experience in this world, they know the world is full of suffering. So one may say, if the world is already so much suffering, why should I do more suffering? Why should I add to my suffering? No, it's not quite like that. The nature of austerity is that we're ordained to have some certain amount of suffering. Now, if we take up that suffering upon ourselves, we voluntarily take it up, our own suffering will become minimized. This is actually the reality, that I'm due to have suffering anyway. So why wait for suffering to come and happiness to come? Actually, if I, on my own accord, I take up some suffering now, then that portion of suffering will be depreciated in the future, will be removed in the future, because I'm due to take up some suffering in this life anyway. I'm born to have suffering and enjoyment in this life anyway. So why not just voluntarily take up that suffering now and use it for a higher cause? Otherwise it will come anyway. Why don't I just take up the suffering now and, you know, use it within my power, within my control, within my gift to do something good? So this is austerity. This is the benefit of taking up austerity. Now, if we take up austerity for material purpose, we know that we'll get some short-term gains. Short-term pains for short-term gains. But if we take up austerity for Krishna, the gain will be eternal, everlasting, unchecked. So imagine you take up some difficulty now, like in this month of Kartik, people take vratas, isn't it? We had just finished Kartik month, yeah? But we know that whatever we performed in the month of Kartik is going to give us eternal benefit. Not only is the month of Kartik so special in that you perform some austerity, is multiplied. You know, you chant one round of japa, it's said that you're chanting like 100 rounds or whatever the multiplication is. So in the scriptures, it's giving some multiplication factor as well. You chant one round of japa is equal to 100 rounds of japa. And that eternal benefit is there. It's like that will stay with you forever, that benefit of chanting that japa. So this is the nature of spiritual austerity, is with you forever. So just as by way of introduction, this is what we can understand to mean by austerity. Okay, so this voluntary suffering, which leads to sustainable happiness. Because the first item here discussed, or 5 items, the first one, if we just go through 5 actually, first is satisfaction. Second is simplicity. Third is gravity. Number 4 is self-control. And number 5 is self-purification. So these are austerities of the mind. Yes. So the first one of all is giving us a clue that we will be happy by taking up austerity. Why? Because prashanta, satisfaction, being peaceful. So if the austerity is done properly, then one should feel peaceful. And of course, this chapter being about the divisions of faith, will go into if you're doing austerity in the mode of ignorance, then you will feel disturbed. If you're doing in the mode of passion, your benefits will be short-lived. And if you're doing in the mode of goodness, then you should be peaceful. So this is actually saying that actually austerity will make us peaceful. Krishna uses this word again earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, that anyone who is having a peaceful mind or a steady mind, they can lead to happiness. That can lead to happiness. In chapter 2, text 66, Krishna says, one who is not connected to the Supreme can neither have transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Yeah. So first one is to have peace of mind. So if we don't have peace of mind, then we cannot have happiness anyway. So the austerities of the mind, they do give oneself a sense of self-peace. Even if that austerity isn't visible to others, they'll say, oh, this guy is so peaceful. This lady, she's so peaceful. What is your secret? Because we must be practicing the austerities of the mind if we want to be peaceful. That's our secret. Secrets in the Bhagavad Gita. So satisfaction, prashanta. Well, let's take it the other way around. If there's dissatisfaction, how do we deal with dissatisfaction? This is like a golden question, especially in this past year, 2 years. We've not only had a pandemic, a COVID pandemic, but it seems like the world is going through a dissatisfaction pandemic as well. And that pandemic will go on past COVID. People are so dissatisfied, and there's so much depression, anxiety. All these things are becoming huge problems in the world. So how do we deal with dissatisfaction? This is a great question. So this verse gives us 2 clues, 2 ways we can deal with dissatisfaction. So first is we can be prashanta. We can be satisfied, be satisfied with what we have. Oftentimes, we are feeling unfulfilled. Because we feel unfulfilled, then therefore we feel dissatisfied. That my desires haven't been fulfilled, my needs haven't been fulfilled, my wants haven't been fulfilled. I don't have what I want. I don't get what I need. I don't feel appreciated. These all things lead to dissatisfaction. Yeah. So how do we counteract that? So one way is gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful tool of the mind. We have to train the mind. We train the mind. This is the austerity. To train the mind to be satisfied by gratitude. Actually, what can I be grateful for? Instead of allowing the mind to tell us what we don't have, let us use the mind to see what we do have. If our basic needs are fulfilled, if we have good food, we have water, we have our home, we have our relationships that support us. If our basic needs are being fulfilled, then actually we're in the top 10, according to statistics. We're in the top 10% of the human population. 90% of people's needs are not being met in this world, due to poverty, due to certain world disasters, different reasons. People's basic needs are not being met at some point or another. Here in the UK recently, there was a huge fuel crisis. There was no petrol available in the pumps, in the petrol stations. No fuel available. And it led to so many people becoming so dissatisfied. People were queuing up outside the fuel pumps for miles, for hundreds and hundreds of yards even, rather, they were queuing up. And people were so stressed that I only got, 10 miles of fuel left, or 5 miles, or even 2 miles of fuel left. Will I get enough fuel to even go to the petrol station? People under such, stress. So media drives a lot of our dissatisfaction. Media hypes so many things. Yeah. Actually, there was like all these WhatsApp groups, people were texting, oh, in my petrol station there is fuel. Oh, mine is finished. Mine has been refueled. And like that, you could always, get the news. What's happening? Where is the fuel? But media is giving such a hype that, all the fuel is finishing, all the fuel is running out. It's causing a great dissatisfaction. And like that, media, it tells us we need this, we need that, we need to go here, we need to go there. And when we put all of that in the mind, there's no satisfaction, there's dissatisfaction. So gratitude, appreciating what we do have, or even using things that we have. Do we use all the things that we have? Or do I always need a newer car? My car is just fine, but I need a newer car. My computer is just fine, I need a new computer. My kitchen appliances, they're just fine, but I want new kitchen appliances, whatever it may be. Are we satisfied? Do we value the things which we already have? Do we always wait for something to break before we buy a new one? Do I wait for my bed frame to fall apart before I buy a new bed? So do we use things which we have? And do we overestimate the value of the things which we don't have? If I just had this in my life, my God, all my problems will be solved. Huh? Do we really estimate the value? Do we not overvalue the things which we don't have? If I could just have this, then my life will be perfect. If I could just have that, if I could just go there, if I could just be with those people, my life will be complete. So let us rationalize what we really need. So this is the second way to deal with satisfaction. So one is to be satisfied with what we have. The second one is saumya, as I said here, simplicity is another austerity of the mind. So are we really satisfied with what we have? Can we live simply with what we have? If we really had all the things that we wanted, would we be happy? Is that what we see around us? The media is telling us we need to have so many things to fulfill all our desires to be happy. But where are the examples of that? Do we see in the popular culture, the celebrities of television, of radio, whatever, the different film celebrities? Are they so satisfied? They have everything they need, and still they take to drugs and alcohol and no. So because all the things that they have are not giving them the happiness they expect. Unrealistic expectations. So simplicity, as Krishna says, saumya, that will actually make us happy. If we have simplicity, then we'll realize we don't actually need all the things our mind tells us we need. In this regard, in text 1 and 2 of chapter 13, Krishna speaks about simplicity here also. sorry, no, it's a little bit later. Text from text 8 in chapter 13. Krishna gives a whole list of different qualities, beginning with humility. Krishna says humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, then simplicity. Krishna mentions simplicity there also. Simplicity is a symptom of knowledge. Krishna gives 23 qualities, which all declared to be qualities associated with one who is in knowledge. And simplicity is one of those qualities. Krishna say, and then Prabhupada goes on to explain in the purport there that simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. Srila Prabhupada explains in that text. So another way of looking at simplicity is, first of all, do I have, can I be happy with what I already have? That's one way of looking at simplicity. Another way of looking at simplicity is, do I deal with people in a simple and straightforward way? Am I straightforward in the way I deal with people? Because those who are duplicitous, this is opposite of simplicity, is duplicity. Duplicity means, let me tell this person with a twisted truth. Let me twist the truth and tell someone. And then another person, let me twist another way and tell something. And that way I will get what I want in life. So we think, okay, this is very intelligent. I can manipulate this person and that person and get what I want in life. But this is actually not, or at least to peacefulness of mind. Think about it, because if you tell someone something which is not true or half-truth, you tell another person another half-truth, and you're creating stories around you, then in the mind we have to hold all this information. So I told this person like this, I told that person like that. Now when I deal with them, I always have to remember how I told them and how I told them. Right? It creates complexity in the mind, not simplicity, not satisfaction, not peace. So these things are a burden on the mind if we're not simple. So we have two choices to deal with dissatisfaction. We can be satisfied with what we have, or we can simplify our desires. We can say, actually, I don't need that. Now, the next quality Krishna speaks about is gravity. In the word-for-word translation, monam. So sometimes monam means silence. To be silent. This is what Prabhupada refers to as monam in the Nectar of Instruction. Therein Prabhupada says that when we are silent, or when we don't speak unnecessarily, that is one type of silence. Some people in spiritual circles, they take vows to be silent. That I will remain silent for 1 day, or 1 week, or 1 month, or whatever. And that way my mind will be controlled. But then at the same time, you see such people, they have a chalkboard, or they have a noteboard or a pad. If they want to give a message, then here, read my message. Is it really silence? No, because the mind is still active. So this is not really the training for becoming silent in mind. In the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami recommends silence means that we should discuss Krishna. We should hear about Krishna. We should think about Krishna. We should discuss Krishna. Yeah. Then our mind is materially silent. Materially silent, spiritually active. Yeah. So that way our mind is peaceful because it's situated in a higher in a higher conversation, in a higher thought. So this is progressive now. If we are satisfied, if we are simple in our dealings, then our mind can also be silent materially. We can also experience monam, real monam, which means real silence of material desires, material thoughts. Because the thoughts will be spiritual, the talks will be spiritual, and hearing, of course, spiritual. So what are the obstacles to having a silence of mind, or monam? Prabhupada tells us this story about the bee and the fly. Yeah, does anyone know this story? Now the bee, it goes to look for nectar always, and the fly is always looking for garbage. Has anyone heard this story before? I'm going to check in and see who's paying attention this evening. All right, so there's a story which Srila Prabhupada tells. Okay, Hare Govinda Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So I'll tell the story briefly. So there are two types of personalities. One type of personality is like a bee, a honeybee. And what is the quality, the characteristic of the honeybee? In the garden, the honeybee will not stop anywhere and everywhere. The honeybee will always know where to find the most fragrant, beautiful, nectarian flowers. And it will go right deep into the flower, into the center of the flower, and it will collect the nectar there. And then it will go back out of that flower once it's collected the nectar and take to the hive. Yeah. So this is the nature, the quality of the bee. But the fly in the garden has a different quality, a different nature. That fly will go past all of the beautiful flowers and the trees and the plants, and it will find some place where there is like something rotten, something disgusting, and it will roll and enjoy in that area of the garden where there is some rubbish or some dirt. So the bee and the fly, they're different natures, they're attracted to different things. So similarly, we should see our association, how it is. Which type of what does our mind like to associate with? Does our mind tell us, oh, we should go and hear gossip and rubbish about others? Or we should hear the nectarian stories of Krishna Katha, as Srila Prabhupada is instructing us here in this purport. We should take full satisfaction in the stories, the Mahabharata and the Puranas, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of nectarian topics. So we can counteract this monam by becoming more like a bumblebee when searching for some taste in life. We shouldn't look for the lower taste, but look for always the higher taste. Now, how does this reflect in the way that we deal with others? If we are always tasting nectar in our life, how do we judge that? How do we measure? How much am I peaceful in mind? How much am I experiencing this monam? Well, one way is that we will not be finding fault with others. We don't find fault. We're not always thinking, oh, this person is always troubling me. Why do they always do this thing? Why can't they just do things like that? Why couldn't they, behave a little better? Why couldn't they change their attitude or their approach or the way they speak to me? These type of thoughts always trouble the mind, isn't it? So this is one thing too. Not meditate on the faults of others, like the fly. Not meditate on the faults of others. They said that if you're pointing your finger at someone else, then there's 3 more fingers here, which is pointing back at you. When the mind is always finding fault with so many others, there are 3 fingers pointing back. So we should try to avoid this fault finding. This is an austerity of the mind. Yeah, thinking negatively of others. And another thing is, if we have been hurt by others, if we have been troubled in some situations, then let us not share our wounds with everyone and anyone around us. Going around and telling everyone, oh, I have such problems in my life, I have so many difficulties, I have so many obstacles, you know, why am I so unfavored? Why am I so neglected? Of course, if we're going through difficulties, we should take advice and get guidance from our seniors and those who are caring for us. That's a different thing. Inquiring confidentially, getting guidance confidentially is a must. But some of us, we have a certain taste. And let me go and tell everyone my problems to feel better. Let me go and share my problems with the world. Because then people will have pity on me and people will take compassion upon me. And this doesn't actually give us a real sense of satisfaction of mind. It doesn't actually give us real satisfaction of peace. Because forever we'll be thinking, who is going to be kind to me? Who can I go and share my problem with? Who will take pity on me? Instead of finding fault or sharing our wounds with others, we can take shelter in the stories of Krishna, in the life of great souls, devotees of Krishna. And this will make our mind silent, maunam, or peaceful. So you can see how these different austerities, as we're discussing them, they actually give fruit to something better. Yeah. So if I take up some voluntary trouble now in dealing with my mind, then I will gain a sense of relief overall by practicing these types of austerities. So the next one Krishna speaks about, so we discussed 3 now: satisfaction, simplicity, and gravity. Then Krishna speaks about, mentions self-control. Atma vinigraha. So self-control, it can be understood very easily, self-control. Again, in the Nectar of Devotion, which is one of the books Srila Prabhupada translated, in the first verse of the Nectar instruction, is the verse Vacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam Jiva Vegam Udara Prastha Vegam. So this verse, it talks about self-control. One who can become self-controlled can become spiritual. When we can control the body, when we can control the speech, then we can control the mind. So self-control, actually, sometimes when I go for book distribution, I tell people, have you heard of yoga? And they say, yeah, I heard of yoga. So people stop, they think, oh yeah, I know about yoga. So they say, so I say, what kind of yoga we're doing? It's not exercises, gymnastics, stretching. Our yoga is very easy. We're doing tongue yoga. Tongue yoga? What's that? Our yoga is tongue yoga. Bhakti yoga is tongue yoga. Why? It's very easy, our yoga system. 3 things we do with the tongue. Let me involve you all now. What activities do we do with the tongue? There are 3 activities we do with the tongue, which I tell people about. You can use your tongue.
Speaking.
Sorry?
Yes, speak, Mule.
We speak.
Speaking.
We speak.
Yes, Vacha Vegam, speaking. What is another activity of the tongue?
Taste. We
Tasting
taste.
food. Yes, number 2 is tasting food. Yeah. Number 3, can anyone say? What activities do devotees do with the tongue?
Chant.
Chanting the holy names. Yes. Chanting the holy names of Krishna. So our yoga system is simply tongue yoga. These are our 3 activities which we can control all other senses. All the senses can be controlled by controlling the tongue. You know that? Someone says, I have a weight problem. Someone says, I have, I have a problem with my fitness, whatever. Everything can be controlled by the tongue. Someone says, I cannot control sex desire. Rupa Goswami, he explains, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pasta Vegam. The Jiva, if the Jiva is controlled, the tongue, then Udara Pasta Vegam. Udara, the belly is controlled, and also the genitals are controlled because they come in a straight line. So by controlling the tongue, all the other senses become controlled. This is the secret, tongue yoga. So that begins with the mind, because we have to think about Krishna first before we can speak about Krishna, before we can chant about Krishna. It starts with the mind. So self-control is the next item. Then the final one mentioned here is number 5, self-purification, which is bhava sumudhishu. Sorry, bhava sumudhi. Now bhava sumudhi, bhava means it means one's nature. Yeah, and samudhi means complete purification. So self-purification or purification of one's nature. So our nature, as I discussed when we were all together last Monday, is made of the 3 modes. Yeah, this chapter is about the 3 modes of nature. So we are influenced by these 3 modes within the heart. We're influenced in different ways by these 3 modes of nature. We discussed this last Monday. And so self-purification means purification from these 3 modes. So one way is, we discussed last week, by increasing our faith in the spiritual nature, increasing our faith in spiritual activities. Then our faith in material activities will decrease. Our happiness, which we depend on material activities, will decrease. We'll get more, wherever the attention goes, that's where our energy flows. Wherever attention goes, energy flows. So if we focus our mind, our attention on the spiritual things, then our energy will naturally go in that direction. Yeah, we won't be chasing for material things. We won't be disturbed by the material things. Now, Prabhupada, he recommends for bhava sumudhi that we should observe regulative principles. So by following the 4 regulative principles, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex life, then we are purifying ourselves by practicing. Because even though we may desire these lower activities, by training the mind, by regulating the mind, we'll become free from the desire for those things. Yeah. And Prabhupada also recommends we perform some scars. So especially for families, if we're raising children, if we want our children to have peaceful mind, we should perform some scars for them. And also for ourselves, we should take up some scars of life. Prabhupada says there are 10 principal samskaras. So beginning with even to bring a good soul into this world, then we have to perform the Garbhadan Samskara before the partners they unite. We should perform this Garbhadan Samskara. Then there are other samskaras in the womb. And then when the child is born, Jati Samskara, which is to cut the cord. So there, and then guys, you go as the child goes through life. There is the Nam Samskar, Namkaran Samskar, the naming, and the Anaprashan Samskar, the first grains. And so like that, there are many. Balmudan, which is to shave the head. And there are many samskars. And these things, they actually cut off obstacles in our life. This is the physical, the external way of purification in life. Yeah, there are two ways which we can purify our life. One is from the outside in. So by performing these samskaras, our outside environment, our body and mind becomes purified. And the other way is inside out. So by performing spiritual activities, by becoming spiritually deeply rooted, and that pervades externally. Yeah. So by chanting, by hearing about Krishna, yeah, by associating with devotees, by visiting holy places, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, by worshipping the deity, by performing these principles of bhakti, the purification within is shining out. It purifies externally as well as internally. Oma pavitra pavitrava sarvavasta gadopava. Yat smarat pundarika aksham sabayanta suchihi. So we become purified from internally to externally by performing bhakti, and also externally to internally by performing samskaras. So this is self-purification. So I see we don't have so long left, but I wanted to quickly go through as an example, because I've just been speaking a lot of the philosophy now. So let me try and give some example of a personality who exemplifies all of these behaviors. Prabhupada, he refers to this person who he uses this verse to exemplify this personality I'm going to speak about in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Mahabharata. And coincidentally, Srila Prabhupada says that we should hear about the personalities of the Mahabharata and the Puranas in this purport. So the personality Vidur, has anyone heard of Vidur? Mahatma Vidur. He is the uncle of the Pandavas, the brother of Pandu and Dhritarashtra. He is the younger brother. And actually he is a very good example. He's a perfect example of someone who has performed austerities of the mind. If we study his life, we'll see how he's dealing in all situations with complete control of the mind. And we know from his life, he went through so many difficulties. So he was the advisor to the king. We can say the Mahamantri, the prime minister of the king Dhritarashtra in the Mahabharata. Yeah. And in his life, we can see all those situations which he went through, how he exhibited peace of mind. You see? So first of all, he had satisfaction of mind. Just like when he was so he was very much like criticized by Duryodhana at so many stages. He was so criticized by Duryodhana. Yeah, but he was always satisfied with what he had. Because he was trying to always do good for other people. He was never trying to control any situations. So he had satisfaction. Actually, even before, because those of you may know the history, Vidur in his previous life, He was Yamraj, you know, Yamraj. He was cursed because there was a sage who he, I haven't got the name here actually, but there was a sage who he condemned in hell for a short time. And the sage said to him, why should I go to hell for a short period? And he said, when you were a child, you were killing insects. You were killing small creatures. And he said, but I was a child. So why should I be condemned for what I did as a small boy? And then that sage, he cursed Vidur and said, now you go and live with those people who you are trying to condemn. So Vidur, Yamraj accepted that curse with satisfaction. He was satisfied. Okay, I should atone for my mistake. And so he accepted, and he became born in the womb of Shudra. But he still had great characteristics. So we think that sometimes the demigods, they don't actually make any mistakes. We see though many times Indra makes mistakes, Yamraj makes mistakes. That doesn't make them any less a great personality, because anyone in the material world can make mistakes. Only Krishna is free from mistakes. But he was satisfied with whatever came his way, even though he was cursed by this sage. He exhibited simplicity. Means he was so straightforward in the way he's dealing with others, you know. Like in the assembly of the Kurus, when Draupadi was being insulted, he was speaking up very strongly that this should not happen. When it had happened, at the end, he was criticizing so much. He was criticizing Duryodhana and the royal family so much that they shouldn't have done this, when others were remaining silent. So he was very straightforward. He didn't think about what the repercussions would be of his words. He exhibited great gravity. When the Pandavas were sent to the Shellac house, the house which burned, you know, the house which caught fire. They went for a religious function, like in the official role of princess. Yudhishthira was about to be coronated, and they went for this formal ceremony before that coronation. And the Kurus, the Duryodhana and his brothers, they schemed that, well, if we burn their house while they're away, then they will not be coronated. Then Yudhishthira will not be coronated. Now Vidur, he found out about this, and he was very grave. He was very quiet. He didn't mention it to anyone that he knew. And he made arrangement that they could escape from that house, the luck house, you know. So he made arrangement that they could escape, but he didn't tell anyone. He's very sober about the way he dealt with it all. Even Bhishma Pita didn't know. He didn't even speak a word to anyone. He was very silent about it. Then he was very self-controlled, because he was always being mistreated. Even though he was always giving good advice, he was always being mistreated by Duryodhana, and eventually by Dhritarashtra. He was kicked out of the house, of the royal household, even though he was the very brother of Dhritarashtra, even though he was the uncle, the senior of Duryodhana. He was kicked out of the house when he spoke strongly against the Kurus going for war. You know, they're very hungry for having war with the Pandavas, and every attempt they tried to destroy them, still they were hungry for war. And Vidur, he always spoke strongly about this, but he was very self-controlled. When they criticized him, he didn't take it so personally. He was always interested in the welfare of others. And finally, for his self-purification, when he was thrown out of the royal house, he went on holy pilgrimage. He took it as a blessing. He said, you know, why I'm working so hard, trying to, you know, uplift these people, and they're not even listening to me. If they want to remove me, if they want to reject me, this is a grand opportunity. He just saw the good side. Let me go for self-purification. Let me go and visit all the Tirtha Yatra places, pilgrimage. So this was the great quality of Vidur, who displayed the austerities of mind. And what was the result? He was doing it for Krishna. So what was the result? Lord Krishna came to his home. Krishna could have gone to the house, the palace of Duryodhan for a meal, or he could have gone to the the simple cottage where Mahatma Vidur was living, and he chose to go to Vidur's home, because he so much appreciated these qualities which Vidur had. For no other reason. It wasn't that Krishna was hungry for a big feast, and Duryodhan had prepared a huge grand banquet. But Krishna wasn't hungry for that feast. Who knows the story of what happened when Krishna came to the home of Vidur?
When Krishna came to his house, he didn't have lots of food items, and his wife had bananas. So she peeled the bananas, and she was so much in awe and so much in love with Krishna, she didn't even realize that she was serving Krishna the skin of the bananas and not the banana. She in a plate, she just put all the skins.
And then she brought that on the plate to Krishna, isn't it? And what did Krishna do?
He ate the skins.
He didn't reject the skins. He ate the skin. Krishna, was eating the bitter skin of the banana peel. He finished the banana peel. And Vidur wasn't home at the time. When he returned home, he said, what happened? And how did you receive Krishna? And his wife explained, yes, I gave him bananas. I gave him what we had. And then they both looked and they saw in the corner, the bananas were there next to the bin. And the peels were gone. Now Krishna had come to the home and eaten peels, and he was so satisfied. He'd eaten the bitter peel instead of the sweet banana. But he was tasting the sweet love of Vidur and his wife. So this is the austerity of mind. It pleases Krishna so much. So I hope what I've said to you this evening has been helpful and inspiring to you in your spiritual life. We're up to time now. I want to ask Mataji if we would like to take questions or if we should end here.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhuji, for giving us your time. I know I really am wished to, because it's 5 o'clock in the UK, and it's 8 o'clock here. Now it's 9 here, and you were just finishing work, and I was asking for you to join. So sorry about that, Prabhuji. Are there any questions? We can take 2 or 3 questions. I think everybody's still glued. Otherwise, people leave at 9 o'clock. So, but we can take few questions. There's a comment, very inspiring and made it easy to understand, especially for me. So, are there any questions? Prabhuji, till people are thinking of questions, maybe I could ask a few. Prabhuji, I've heard in one of the classes that in Kali Yuga, even if you think of something bad for somebody in the mind, you will not be punished for it. So we are not supposed to think anything bad. So the austerity of the mind is to be pure. But if we do, it shouldn't be okay, but it's not considered as a sin. Is that true, Prabhuji?
That's right. We're so low trodden in the Kali Yuga that it's very difficult to control the mind indeed. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us very easy way, given us very easy mantra by which we can control the mind. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So if we can chant Hare Krishna as much as possible, we'll be able to control the mind. But if we don't control the mind, what is the result? well, what's already in the mind has to come out. Huh? They say, like, if you have a lemon, you squeeze a lemon, what do you get? Lemonade. Yeah. We squeeze an orange, what do you get? Orange juice. You know. So like that, whenever if someone squeezes the mind, if someone troubles the mind, then you'll see what comes out. Whatever's in the mind will come out. If there's anger in the mind, that will come out. If there's pride in the mind, that will come out. If there's greed, it will come out. If there's lust, it will come out. So yes, we can think I don't have to control the mind, you know, as long as I can speak sweetly, as long as I can act nicely. But when we're under some pressure, then that will come out.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Are there any other questions? I don't want to hog up all the questions. Okay, Prabhuji, regarding austerity, you said, for example, I'm just putting this in the numbers. So I'm supposed to have 100% pain, for example. And if I create, or if I perform some austerities, that 100% pain I'll get a deduction of 10% if I do more austerity. Is that the concept?
Say again, sorry, I didn't understand.
So you said that you should do austerities because you are going to get pain anyway. So I'm just saying I'm supposed to have 90% pain, for example. And if I perform 10% austerity, it will cut off that 90 from that 90%, 10% of the pain. Or does it work that way? Or am I thinking of it very logically?
That's the idea, yeah. We're bound to have some suffering in life. You know, without birth, happiness is born and suffering is born. So if we take up that suffering voluntarily, as much suffering as we take up voluntarily, that much suffering is reduced from our account. So why not take up suffering in the mode of goodness? You know, why not take up austerity as Krishna has recommended? Because if we don't, then we'll find we become attached to happiness. And when that happiness is taken away in the form of suffering, we'll be feeling so dejected in the mind. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Are there any other questions? I really liked the Tanga Yoga, Prabhuji. That really was so appropriate.
That's what I say to people on book distribution.
Okay, I'll quickly ask the last question, Prabhuji. Especially for people who share their wounds with others. They keep on telling their sad stories again and again and again to other people. For them, it is recommended to listen to Krishna stories. So in Krishna stories, are they supposed, the aim would be to say, oh, wow, this is Krishna? Or is it to give them examples of devotees who have undergone so much pain and still they haven't complained, like we just spoke of Vidura? So are we supposed to give them examples of those, or they are just supposed to know the stories of Krishna? Because the background of people that I work with is different. So, but they come and cry. So how do I counsel them, or what do I tell them?
Yeah, there's so much there in the pastimes of Krishna. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, he says that the news of the spiritual world is greater than the news of the material world. You know, our experiences of the material world is so small, actually. There's a great spiritual world out there. There's so much to know about and learn about and hear about and taste and enjoy. So if we open ourselves up to that huge spiritual expansive world, then our problems will feel very small. They say if how is it? If you have, you should tell if you think you have great problems. Sorry, I can't remember now. Don't think you have great problems. Tell your great problems you have a great God. Actually, I can't remember how it is. There is a nice phrase. Maybe I'll send it to you after in the
Okay, Prabhuji.
chat, which you can share. Yeah. Don't tell God you have great problems. Tell your problems you have a great God.
God. Yeah.
Is it? No. Yeah. You don't tell your God you have great problems. Tell your problems you have a great God. So this is Krishna Katha. And if we're hearing Krishna Katha, we become attracted to Krishna. We become attracted to these great personalities, to their great qualities. And by associating with their great qualities and our qualities, our negative qualities go away and our spiritual good qualities develop. And ultimately we go back to Godhead. What could be better?
That's true, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. I know we have exceeded our time today. I'll hand over to Path Prabhuji. Path Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much. Please accept our humble obeisances. Thank you, Prabhuji. You are very simply and very analytically discussed about the austerity of mind. Already we discussed the two, like austerity of body and the austerity of speech. And more important is mind. If we control our mind, and our mind is like self-control, gravity, simplicity, satisfaction, it is the main cause. And we can control our speech, also body and everything. The mind is the main master of everything. And you also giving the nice example of Vidur and others also. So it is really helpful how to control our mind, the austerity of mind. And one thing is that all these like a lecture is here is very nice. And one thing is that if we engage our mind, Sabai Mana Krishna Padara Bindai. If we engage our mind in the lotus feet of a Krishna, then everything will be controlled. Everything will engage all the senses, all the body and the speech, our tongue, and all the genitals. Everything is. So our main focus is that we engage. Instead of a control, we engage. But sometimes this control is very hard. But if we engage, like you were reading the BP before also, many verses is that we engage our mind in Krishna service, like book distribution and other things, and rendering service and so many things. Then it will easy to control the mind. That is the mind, austerity of mind. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your nice and wonderful class, Prabhu. Also, I thanks all the devotees who joined here. We are so grateful. You are, instead of your busy schedule, but you are spend your time to learn something that is very encouraging to us also. We are so grateful. We are also so grateful the speakers around the world, they are coming and they are spare their time. It is also encouraging us. It is very, very, there is a speech is the word is so less to gratify, to gratifying my words. Thank you, Prabhuji, for your such a wonderful class. I request all the devotees. Yes, Prabhuji. I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for the glorification of His Grace Sachinananda Karuna Prabhuji. Please join. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Vancha kalpa
Sarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
His Grace Sachinananda Karuna Prabhuji ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.